Welcome to our Showrunners panel. You can watch all of our individual chats as separate videos, but now all together, we've got, and all four of these are from shows that have debuted in the past few months. We've got Katori Hall from P-Valley on Stars, Aaron Guzikowski, Raised by Wolves, HBO Max, Benjamin Cavell, The Stand, CBS All Access, and Susanne Bier, The Undoing on HBO. Let's talk about, I'm always fascinated with people. When you decided to go into production, being a producer, a writer in many cases, Susanne is a director, what were some shows either growing up or in college or early on in your life that really influenced you? Maybe 2 or 3 shows, and maybe say why. Benjamin, let's start with you.
Wow, it's hard to just choose 2 or 3. I mean, I suppose the shows that really made me think, oh, TV is a place for me as a writer, where it's so pedestrian. But The Sopranos, was pretty seminal for me. I mean, just the idea that you could do that on TV, essentially, doing a novel as a TV show, basically. I mean, where you're exploring this guy and you don't seem to have any restrictions. And I don't know, that was, I think I sort of, in my mind, I lose sight of just how revolutionary that felt. For me, at least, watching the first season, the first 2 seasons really of The Sopranos, where it was just like, what is this? What have they found? I mean, this is a new medium, it felt like.
Who else?
I think for me, and this is going to sound perfect and weird at the same time, but it was Good Times. So, there's the sitcom, and I feel as though the African-American family has really been visually articulated in sitcom land, and it only hasn't been until probably the past 20 years where it's kind of moved into the drama space. But what was so interesting about Good Times was that even though it was a sitcom, it dealt with like these very serious issues. And so I remember this episode where Penny ended up, her mama was threatening her with like getting burned with an iron. And it was like, oh my God, they're discussing child abuse in this sitcom. And so I feel as though it's always influenced my writing, where I have been able to layer in like very heavy themes with like a little wisp of humor.
I got to interview Norman Lear last summer, who at age 98 has just won another Emmy this past September. And talk about a legend. All of you could probably name shows of his that have been influential to you. What about you, Susanna?
Well, coming from Denmark, we have a completely different tradition of television. Television is not part of the culture. Like, it's not like, so we had a television, but we were only kind of allowed to watch it really rarely because, we would sit down and have dinner together and do all those kind of things. But I watched a very old version of Treasure Island when I was like maybe 12 or something. And it was absolutely terrifying. And I still remember it was like black and white. And I still remember, the wooden leg and kind of walking along on the island, and that's sort of totally terrifying. And I was waiting to get permission to watch again next week. And I think that really kind of stuck with me because it was like so fascinating, and it was so fascinating to think about and wait for next time. And it actually kind of filtered down into like, reading stories and all those kind of things because it made such a huge impact.
Aaron?
It's such a hard question. I was kind of like the cable guy. I've watched so much TV in my life. It's so hard to pick a favorite, but I was kind of raised by TV. I think I always go back to the original Twilight Zone. I think that one always I always go back to it. I watch it over and over and over. And since I saw it when I was a kid, and even the title sequence and the images in the title sequence, and there's actually 2 different title sequences, and even the end credits. The end credits for the Twilight Zone is one of my favorite things ever. Just like the way the music goes, and it just becomes so weird. It just blew my mind as a kid. I liked watching anything that scared me, anything that was weird on TV, waking up really early, like at 4 a.m. and seeing what was on TV, some weird drawing show with some weird, sailor guy, or, Yeah, I don't know. I love all TV, so it's hard to pick, but I say Twilight Zone probably wins.
We talked about this a little bit when we were discussing The Stand, because that hasn't quite debuted yet. What is it like waiting on the public to see your project when you know what you've got? And that could be, and well, I'll start with Katori, because that could be a play, that could be your television show. What's it like in those weeks or months when everything's kind of ready, but the public can't see it yet?
Oh my God, it's nerve-wracking, because you just hope to God that everything was laid in correctly in the nick, that didn't drop out. Like, you just worked so hard. Everybody on this panel, I'm sure, can relate to that feeling. But it kind of feels like being pregnant, right? Not everybody can relate to this.
I'll take your word for it.
Take my word.
Yeah.
You're right.
Like, you get closer and closer to the date, and it gets a little bit more uncomfortable. You're tired, you're hot. You just want that baby out. And once it pops out, you're just like, oh my gosh, I hope everyone thinks my baby is as beautiful as the mama does. And that kind of is the journey. That's how it was for me, especially in 2020, which is when my show premiered, which has been a very hard.
All of you would have similar answers to this. So let me reword it a little bit, because you've all had multiple projects in your career, whether they be feature films or television or plays. What's a moment in any of your career that you knew how it looked as it got shot, and you knew what it was, maybe after it was edited, that you just couldn't wait for the public to see? Just some moment or a scene or a piece of dialogue or something that you were just so excited you couldn't wait to see what the reaction was. Aaron, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think, when we were cutting, the first 2 episodes of the show, there were definitely things that I saw, and it was just, it was very much that. Just I couldn't wait for everyone to see, and it was, but also wondering, like, am I crazy? Is this really good, or am I just crazy? I made it, so what do I know? Of course I like it. But and it's a weird thing. But then, but eventually, obviously then people around you are saying the same thing, and after a while you're like, okay, maybe this is going to work, and it's very exciting.
Well, I know you don't telegraph it too much, but is there? I know you're thinking of one. Can you say enough about? Oh, when you see this moment by this actor or in this location, I can't wait till you see that.
Oh yeah, we had there's a scene at the end of the pilot where this android goes up aboard this ship and basically just wipes everybody out. It's this huge massacre, and she crashes the entire ship, and it's just bananas. And the way it was shot, and I was there when Ridley was shooting it, and there was so much fake blood just exploding everywhere because he uses all this, real tradition, real stuff, and it was unlike anything I'd ever seen, and I was just giddy. I don't know. It's such a weird. Because it's so rare that happens, where you're really there and you're like, wow, this is it. This is the way I saw it, and then some. It almost never happens, but that was definitely one of those moments, and it was great. It was really cool.
Susanna, what about you?
It was really weird with this show, because we shot it and finished shooting and was editing, and then pandemic. We had almost finished editing when the pandemic kind of struck, and everything got closed down. And we were editing in London, and I went back to Copenhagen, and my editor was in London, and we would be kind of finishing editing by FaceTime, like he had an Avid in his apartment, and we'd be FaceTiming, and I would go, maybe like a little bit shorter, a little bit closer, like really kind of sort of very weird. And then I went back in August when everything were kind of a bit calmer and there weren't as many cases in London. I went back and we watched, because I was going to see all the mix. And so I sat down in the cinema and watched all 6 episodes in a row in the cinema. And it was so weirdly nostalgic. It was so nostalgic because you had New York City and nobody was wearing masks and everybody was hugging and holding hands, and it was just like it was literally shot 9 months earlier, and it felt totally nostalgic. And I was waiting for for the series to come out, but also for, like, in a way, to give audiences that sort of re-experience of New York City, of a big city, of something which is sort of borderline normal, or at least I just felt that there suddenly was an added romantic element to it that wasn't originally part of the show, but was added because of everything that happened. And I was very kind of intrigued by that.
Benjamin?
There's so many sort of very large set piece action scenes. Action scenes, I suppose, makes it sound cheaper than I mean it to. But there are just so many set pieces, in the book, these enormous, memorable sequences that we have done our best to render for the screen. And I must say, the size of what we were able to pull off, for the climax, but for a number of things along the way, I was. You said, was there a moment you were kind of blown away watching it and thinking, I can't wait for people to see that? that was my experience on set. Sort of that was the rule. Certainly for these big sequences that we were doing, it was just like, wow, I haven't seen anything like this, and I still feel that way. So I'm excited to, I hope everybody else does too.
Before I ask Katori, I'm going to say, without saying a name, I guess it was the end of the first episode, you got a surprise Oscar winner cameo that's not billed. And that one, there was quite of a chilling moment for me. And we won't say who it is, and we'll let everybody guess.
Indeed. There may or may not be another Oscar-winning voice cameo in that episode too. But
and Susanna, it's not a huge moment in terms of like visually, but there was a moment where I'll just say a violin case is opened and you see the shot of the son on the bed. And that was a really chilling moment for me as well. So that was something I really enjoyed. Katori, what about you? Something you just couldn't wait for people to see?
The dance, just all of the dancing in the show. I think a lot of people dismiss exotic dancers. They don't know how strong they are. And we prove to the world that these women are athletes. They are stronger than many of us. And so really was proud to see people get that, because I think that was the thing that was most important about the show.
One last question. This is a question I use in almost every panel on the group session. What is something, now that you've been in your career a little while, that you wish you knew when you started out? Either something like you could have told your younger self, hey, watch out for this, or do this, don't do that, or just something you wish you knew, as you got started that now. And I don't know who to go to first because you're all thinking, so somebody jump in.
Okay, I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Katori.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that it's okay to be wrong. I wish I knew that I didn't have to, especially when it's your first time, you want to impress so many people. You don't want to fail, and you will fail. You will not always make the right decision, and that's okay. Like we're all human beings here trying to do something amazing and working together. So
I'm glad you said that. We had a writers panel last week, which I think publishes tomorrow. And one of them said there's basically two kind of writers. The one who will write the whole thing and then go back and rewrite. And then there's the kind that tries to be perfect page by page. And you're basically saying, you don't have to be perfect. You can be wrong.
Absolutely.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. I was going to say that you do overcome your failures, which is, and you learn so much more from them than from anything else. And because if you are terrified of being wrong, then you are terrified of renewing yourself or doing anything which is just dairy or even just consistent. And so yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Don't be scared of that, and forgive yourself if you are wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aaron, what about you?
I think it's, you know, I would tell myself to try and enjoy it a little bit and to calm down and, you know, just, I would say that would be my biggest piece of advice. Please relax. It's going to be okay. Try and enjoy some of this. Yeah. You know, take a look around, smell the roses at some point. Because you never know, you know. We could all be dead tomorrow, so we should enjoy this.
That's great advice. I wish somebody would give me that advice right now.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard that from my parents all through my life it's not always about the destination, it's about the journey.
So they tell me.
It's often when you're in the moment and you're working so hard on something or things are going wrong, it's often not easy to enjoy the journey when you're so focused on the destination. But Benjamin will give you the last answer on this particular question.
Oh, sure. Well, I loved Aaron's answer. So I'm going to violate the spirit of your question because this was actually advice that I was given sort of before my first time in my first writer's room. But I think it's important for all young writers to know, which is everybody always knows the show we should be making, right? Mm-hmm. That is the easiest show to break, to make, to know is going to work, is the show that we're not making, right? The show that you know better about, and I feel like everybody sort of has a version of that. And the advice that I was given before my first writer's room was just don't fall in with those people. There's always people who know what should be happening and what would be happening if they were making the final calls. And you just can't allow yourself to be sort of pulled into that. And I wasn't, not that we had that on Justified, which was my first experience, but I really do think that it's important for all young writers to understand, especially in a writer's room environment, that, you're coming and of course you should be advancing your ideas and, throwing stuff out. And if you disagree with a creative direction, you should be, arguing with the showrunner and whatever, but that ultimately, everybody needs to be pulling in the same direction. And when, the guy or the person who is making the creative call says, well, this is the show we're making, that's the show we're making. And you don't need to keep sort of, I don't know, making or talking about or fantasizing about a different show.
Any last comments by anybody? Listen, we thank you so much. I had a great deal of fun today. We're talking to all four of you, and Golden Globe voters, Critics' Choice voters, all of the Guild voters, whether they be directors, writers, producers, all the crafts. I hope you'll pay attention to P-Valley and Raised by Wolves and The Stand and The Undoing. And we thank all of you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.